As I mentioned in previous tips, aortic stenosis is my favorite. Every echo we do is a story, but sometimes it's a book. This guy is my age, has aortic stenosis, but he has no symptoms, and he needs to work. He's a commercial truck driver. To do that, you have to have a CDL or commercial driver's license, and that requires an aortic valve area, here in my state, of greater than 1.0 centimeters squared. So in 2019, his valve area comes out to 1.6 centimeters squared. His in-atrial fib, but it's at a very controlled rate, and really he's performing very well. His next echo is here in 2022. When you're doing patients that are part of a serial or interval case, you need to pay special attention to previous study data. What LVOT diameter did they use for that aortic valve area? If it is inconsistent, that needs to be considered as the reason for a change in aortic valve area. In this case, the mean is the same, and the aortic valve area does come out a little bit bigger at 1.78. He is also still in a controlled fib and doing well. Now here we are 16 months later. He's very symptomatic. He is in a very uncontrolled atrial fib right now, and he's even symptomatic at rest. So he's not doing well, and this is a much more difficult study for the sonographer for obvious reasons. Which ones do you pick? How do you decide which ones you need to measure? I think the key is always to do them consecutively, even though it may not look like it makes much sense to do that. This is a much tougher study with this irregular AFib that he's exhibiting, and don't forget he's also symptomatic at this time. So the technician averaged some consecutive beats, but didn't do all of them, so the average doesn't work quite as well that way, and we have yet another different LVOT measurement in this study. Either way, the aortic valve area still comes out to 1.4 by the calculations that we normally do as technicians and that actually come right out of the echo machine. Then something different happens. The reader in this case, who did not know this patient, changes the method of calculations and of reporting, takes a single peak measurement and calculates an aortic valve area of 0.8 centimeters squared. You know what happens next, right? This guy actually loses his job, loses his CDL, and basically is out of luck in his early 60s. No one goes from a 1.4 valve area down to 0.8 in a normal situation in only 6 months. Not in reality. Remember how I mentioned that he was very symptomatic during that last echo. After he lost his job, he went through the appeal process, but also part of that what involved getting an ablation. It was the AFib that was causing him to be symptomatic, not the aortic stenosis. So now he shows up in my lab, scheduled for a stress echo. He's not a great candidate for that, and of course I work him up completely before we even begin the stress echo, or before the doctor even shows up to start that. But he's now in a sinus brady. I get a pretty good study on him, and his aortic valve area in this rhythm at this time is 1.5. It fits perfectly with what he has had all along, really since 2019. The mean's 24. I was able to confirm the LVOT from the previous study at 2.3, and he has no AI, so he's doing pretty good. Obviously, I had the easy part of this story. He was in a sinus rhythm for me and was very cooperative. Not a great patient for stress echoes, and luckily the cardiologist canceled that once I showed him the data on his aortic stenosis. So a little update to this slide actually is he did get his CDL back, and he was able to get back to his job. I want you to think about these questions. What can we do with these? And if we don't have any good answers, we need to go ahead and do a little bit of research, talk to other technicians, look for educational opportunities, and see what we can do to help us help these types of patients better. This link actually takes you to YouTube, and you get to actually see the speakers, you see a video about this talking about utilizing this method to determine aortic stenosis in AFib. In this particular case, I didn't really feel like it worked very well, but this could be something that would come up with your physicians if they happen to see this type of talk as well. And you need to be able to understand where they're coming from and how we can best serve this AS AFib population.